こんにちは、お元気ですか？井伏です。以前ね、このチャンネルにゲストで来ていただいた星読みの先生、満月斎先生がこんなことを言ってました。2023年は暴露の年になるよって、ほんとその通りになってきましたよね。タッカーカールソンがもうね、FOX ニュースをやめて、ツイッターでもうどんどん、もういろんな暴露をね、やってくれてます。タッカーカールソンのその暴露を止めるなって感じしますよね。いろんな妨害があると思いますけどね、頑張ってね、暴露続けてくれてますよね。でね、タッカーカールソンだけじゃなくてね、いろんな内部告発者がね、どんどん今出てきてるんですよ。この流れはもう止まらないって感じがね、私するんですけども、そう思うのは私だけでしょうか。それでは早速行ってみたいと思います。タッカー・カールソンがね、暴露してるツイッターの動画があります。で、またありがたいことにこれにね、翻訳をつけてくれてる人がいるんですよね。本当ありがたいですよね。あなたもね、まだね、ツイッターやってなかったね、ぜひツイッターやってみてください。タッカー・カールソンがもういろんなことで暴露してくれてます。タッカー・カールソンだけじゃなくてね、いろんな内部告発者もね、ツイッターをね、プラットフォームとしてね、どんどん暴露してるんですよね。ツイッターの人気もね、ガタ落ちになってましたけど、ここへ来てまた復活してきたなっていう、そんな感じがしますけどね。それではね、このタッカー・カールソンの暴露の動画がありますので、それちょっとだけね、見ていただければと思います。どうぞ。
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. You may have found yourself wondering recently as the world slides closer to nuclear annihilation than any time in human history, why exactly are we at war with Russia? It seems like there's a pretty significant downside to this particular foreign policy decision, starting with economic collapse and ending potentially with extinction. So is there a good reason we're doing it? So many innocent young people have been killed. So many hundreds of billions of dollars have been wasted, some of them from the U.S. Treasury. So what's the point? Are we really doing this so the Biden family can repay its debts to the oligarchs who financed their beach house in Rehoboth? Are we doing it so our government can continue to lie about its illicit biolabs in Eastern Europe? So that flabby losers like Toria Nuland and Tony Blinken can feel like they're doing something important with their sad, empty lives? Really? Honestly, there's got to be a better reason for waging this, the most pointless war of all. What is it? Well, thankfully, we have an answer. Biden from yesterday reaffirming America's unequivocal support for Ukraine.
No matter what happened in Russia, we, the United States, will continue to support Ukraine's defense and its sovereignty and its territorial integrity.
So to recap, we are currently fighting a war for democracy on behalf of a leader who just casually announced he's happy to end democracy, and our democracy-supporting leaders have no problem with that. In fact, they're strongly for it. Shocked? You shouldn't be. Of course they're for it. You should have seen this coming. Wars for democracy always cancel democracy in the process. That's why our leaders love them. And they all do it, even the virtuous leaders. Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. The British government under Winston Churchill threw an entire opposition party into prison and let them rot for the duration, in some cases with their families. So in a war for democracy, you can do anything. Imagine what a man might do who has fewer principles. If that man, say, ran Ukraine, he might seize churches, arrest priests, ban all criticism of himself, disappear his political opponents. And that's happening. Just last month, Zelensky threw a man called Gonzalo Lira into prison indefinitely for the crime of daring to write about the Ukrainian government in unflattering ways. Now, what's interesting, what separates this from other such cases, is that Lira is an American citizen. So Joe Biden, who is quite a bit of SWAT, as they say in Ukraine, could have freed Gonzalo Lira within hours. But he didn't. He didn't want to. He didn't say a word about it. He remains in prison tonight. So that makes you wonder, what's the real motive here? When normal people see war, they see death and destruction, sadness and suffering. But that's not what demagogues see. They understand it differently. They know that war means power, mostly for them. During wartime, everything they do can be justified. War is the gravest of all emergencies. Imagine the COVID lockdowns times 1,000 plus drones. Once war breaks out, politicians become gods with the power of life and death. So in a peaceful democracy, you have to debate your political opponents in public, and that's tiresome. But in a war for democracy, you can just throw them in jail or have them executed. You can see that many in Washington are looking forward to that moment. And that may be why they so fervently support Joe Biden, even many Republicans, against a potential opponent, the only opponent who opposes the war in Ukraine. If you were to end the war, their power would evaporate. Last week, a whistleblower produced WhatsApp messages from Hunter Biden, proving that at the very least, his father knew about his influence peddling businesses abroad and probably participated in them. Quote, "I'm sitting here with my father," Hunter Biden wrote to his Chinese partners demanding money. As much as anything reported about the Bidens over the last several years, this was the smoking gun. There it is, right there in the message. That would have been enough to cripple a normal president. It would have been more than enough to keep a normal president from running for office again. But it had virtually no effect on Joe Biden. Most media outlets ignored it completely or tried to spin Biden's relationship with his son as some kind of moral victory. Quote, "The real meaning of the Hunter Biden saga, as I see it," wrote Nick Kristof of the New York Times, "isn't about presidential corruption, but is about how widespread addiction is and about how a determined parent with unconditional love can sometimes reel a child back." He actually wrote that. And if you doubt it, you should know that view was common. Here's the take from ABC.
The Hunter Biden story, the scandal, the this, the that, it's also the story of a father's love. And Joe Biden has never and will never give up on his son Hunter, and will never treat him lesser than. And so he is a father first. Take it or leave it.
So a whistleblower produces a text message showing that Joe Biden was in the room with his son when his son was selling influence to an enemy power, the Chinese government. And ABC's take on it, Joe Biden is a father first. Take it or leave it. What accounts for a response like that? Well, that's the way you talk when you've got nothing to fear from an upcoming presidential election. You don't even bother to think of an excuse for your candidate because you don't need to. Your country has electronic voting machines. Joe Biden got 81,282,916 votes in 2020, and you're pretty sure he can do it again. In fact, you know he can. You're not worried. But actually, they should be a little worried. The people who control Joe Biden, Susan Rice and the rest, know they can continue to run our government, writing the press releases, formulating the policies, and they can do it effectively forever, as long as Joe Biden gets dressed in the morning. And of course, that's their strong preference. These are fervent opponents of change. But the one thing these people cannot control is aging. Joe Biden is old. He's 80 now. He will be 85 at the end of the next term. People imagine that old age is a long, predictable progression from acuity to permanent unconsciousness. But often that's not at all how it actually works. When old people start to slide, they tend to slide fast. Joe Biden has begun that descent. Here he was yesterday.
And here's what she wrote to me, and I quote, "You can imagine my joy. She called them right away, and the next day they sent someone out to survey her yard. As Beth wrote, this is the best thing that's happened to rural America since the Rural Electrification Act brought electricity to farms in the 30s and 40s. End of quote."
End of quote. You weren't supposed to hear that. Joe Biden read the stage directions out loud. That's like eating the garnish that comes with your entree. You're supposed to know not to do that. Joe Biden no longer does. In a year or two, he will be gone completely, and there will be no hiding it. At that point, the Democratic Party will face a secession problem. If Joe Biden is reelected next year and then forced to leave office during his term due to disability or death, that means Kamala Harris will become president of the United States. And nobody wants that, not even her husband. In real life, nobody likes Kamala Harris. That's not an attack on her. In fact, it's possible to feel pity for someone who's so universally reviled. It is instead an observation of unchanging physical reality like gravity or photosynthesis. Nobody wants Kamala Harris to be president. No one will benefit if she becomes president. So logic suggests there's going to be a change. It's going to have to be somebody else. And whoever that person is going to have to enter the race soon, before the election, after Biden drops out. Who could that person be? We don't know, obviously. This is all just guessing. But we do know whoever that is will have to have two essential criteria. He'll have to be as shallow, ruthless, and transactional as Joe Biden is, and he'll need to have flattery skills that are so polished and advanced they'd be considered superior even in the Saudi royal court. And there's only one man in modern America who fits that description. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and perhaps not coincidentally, Joe Biden's new closest friend. I am here, Mr. President, Newsom told Biden at an event the two did together last week. I am here as a proud American, as a proud Californian, mesmerized by not just your faith and your devotion to this country and the world we're trying to build, but by your results, by your action, by your passion, by your capacity to deliver. I am mesmerized by you, Joe Biden. Imagine saying that as a compliment. You couldn't do it. Few human beings could do it. But Gavin Newsom had no problem at all. Those words rolled right off his forked tongue. He never stopped smiling. So if you're looking for the leader of the coup, there he is right there.
いかがだったでしょうかね。不正選挙によってまた変なやつが大統領になりそうな雰囲気だぞ、みたいなことをね、言われてましたね。恐ろしいですよ。アメリカがどうなるかっていうところで日本が大きくね、影響されますからね。アメリカが咳したら、日本は風邪ひくって言われてますからね。アメリカの動向はね、本当に見逃せないですよね。でね、もう一つね、ものすごい暴露情報があるんですよね。これね、ロシアのメディアが発信した情報なんですけどね、こちらの方もちょっとだけ見ていただければと思います。これです。
A whistleblower who worked with the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe revealed in a video interview that Ukrainian Nazi groups are harvesting the organs of children in basement labs that are being discovered after the buildings are being destroyed by Russian strikes. Vera Veyman, who is a member of the OSCE and worked in Ukraine as part of an international monitoring mission, made the horrifying revelations in a video interview that corroborates earlier reports from the Russian military and even from the Ukrainian military themselves, who have openly bragged that they harvest organs of children and body parts for cats.
Существовали лаборатории у защитников Украины. Это нацбаты. Они, соответственно, занимались, они получали процент за сделки свой, и они занимались тем, что убивали детей. Органы они помещали в контейнеры. Контейнеры дальше продавались, соответственно. И под кодом, экспортным кодом зерна вывозились. Мы ликвидировали 8 лабораторий, а они представляли из себя нечто похожее на то, что мы называем подвалами. В основном мы уже были после зачистки. То есть, когда лаборатория была обнаружена, и, как правило, это было после взрыва. То есть мы заходили на пепелище, там были трупы, там были дети. Препарированы. То есть детки были разрезаны.
Damning stuff, but it gets even worse. After this quick break, we have information from a Russian news segment that Western mainstream media is determined to suppress.
いかがですか？もうね、これから本当は暑い夏になりますけど、背筋がずーっと凍るようなそんなね、情報ですよね。まあこの情報戦というのもまた戦争の一つですから。今の戦争ってもう情報が非常に大事な要素になってきますからね。ですからまあロシアも負けずにこういう情報をガンガン世界に発信しているってことですよ。まあ私もね、思うのは西側ばっかりの情報を得るだけじゃなくて、このロシアの情報もね、多少はこうやってね、みんな知っておかなきゃいけないんじゃないかなと思います。それでやっぱり私たちってバランスが取れるんじゃないでしょうか。でね、これは私の個人的な見解なんですが、先ほどもね、ロシアのメディアの情報が真実であるならばですよ。1年半もかけてなかなか戦争が終わらない原因の一つは、ちまちまそういう研究所を一つ一つ潰してるからだっていうね。まあそういう情報もあるじゃないですか。それがもしも真実であるならば、この人たち、この写真のこの人たち、これね、広島で行われた G7 ですよ。この G7 に集まったこいつら全部ね、平気で子供を虐待できる人たちなんだなって私は思うわけ。もう私たちとはもうきっと違う人種なんですよ。もしかしたら本当にレプティリアンなのかもしれません。 あなたはどう思いますか？いかがだったでしょうか？もうね、子供のね、虐待の事件を聞くともう胸がキューンと張り裂けそうになりますよね。トラさんがね、大統領としてホワイトハウスにいた頃の話なんですけど、トラさんとメラニア夫人が子供たちの虐待映像を見てね、メラニア夫人と一緒にトラさん、しばらく涙が止まらなかったっていうね、有名な話がありますよね。トラさんは紛れもなく熱い心を持った人間なんです。私たちと同じ人種なんだと私は思いますね。以上、今回はここまで。いいねボタンのクリックよろしくお願いいたします。チャンネル登録もね、ぜひぜひぜひよろしくです。最後までご清聴ありがとうございました。